welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm Blake Monroe, where I'm joined every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton and Marcus Myers on this Marcus Myers Monday. Tell us where you're checking in from this morning, what you're drinking, get your questions in. Spring ball is upon us. It starts today. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But first, we got to have a little congratulations in order, guys. The women's basketball are SEC tournament champions, a big game there. We can get into it, but I want to play y'all a clip from after the game yesterday.
Come on in! Y'all, we just, listen, y'all, we just won the SEC tournament, y'all. Let's go!
Hey, that's what Texas Fight is all about right there. You guys were so special today. Focused, disciplined. Man, big shot, Jordan. Big shot over there. Hey, don't worry, here it comes. Hey, listen. Hey, you just improved your speeding. You'll be in Dallas now.
Yeah.
Hey, SEC champs on three. 1, 2, 3.
SEC champs!
Besides winning the SEC tournament championship, maybe more importantly is that does seed them up overall, and I do think their Sweet 16 and Elite 8 will be in Fort Worth, and that's a really big deal. I sat in the Alamo Dome when Texas went to the Final Four when TJ was here, and if people don't think that made a difference in those two games against UConn and Michigan State, I don't know what to tell you. It makes a huge difference. The fact that I think this pushes Texas up over South Carolina to the number 3 seed overall. I do think they go to Fort Worth for the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and you got to love your chances when you're playing in front of a home crowd. Those home crowds have been a big deal for the Dukes and North Carolinas and those teams over the years in the NCAA tournament. And I think this is a really big deal for Texas in the tournament.
It wasn't such a big deal for South Carolina yesterday,
though. It was not.
Lady Longhorns, they swamped them, in my opinion. Got out to a 14-0 run to start the game and then just never took the foot off the pedal. I mean, Jerry, there was a time when South Carolina challenged to get back within 10.
Mm-hmm.
But really, whether it was a big shot from Jordan Lee, a pull-up jumper from Madison Booker, or really the start of the game was Justice Carlton's 13-point effort. Wasn't the first quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy. So long story short, congrats to Coach Vic. He was clearly happy in that, and so are a lot of Longhorn fans. SEC champions 2025-26 for the Lady Longhorns.
Good stuff. All right. Well, as I said, guys, spring ball is here. We're going to get into it in just a second. But first, Bobby, go ahead and tell everyone about John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd like to thank our sponsor, John Donovan, President, Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John's a proud Texas Exes Life member who truly bleeds burnt orange. His wife and 6 siblings are all UT grads. It's his family passion for UT that led John to brand his firm, Longhorn Wealth Management Group, and dedicate it to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services to Longhorn families and fans across the nation for more than 30 years. John's excited and proud that the Longhorn Wealth was recently recognized as a member of the Longhorn 100 and identified by the Texas Exes as one of the fastest 100 growing companies in the world that are founded by, owned by, or led by UT alums. To celebrate this great accomplishment, John is offering all OTF fans a free private financial consultation, either in person, phone, or Zoom, to allow John to help you explore how working with a certified financial planner can enable you to maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. To schedule your free private consultation today, just call Longhorn Wealth Team at 972-707 or schedule online, www.longhornwealth.net. Congratulations, John says, to those women who won the SEC championship. Big time for Coach Vic.
And by the way, it's football practice. If I'm wearing the old coach's bucket hat, I'm actually going to wear this to the practice this morning, I believe. We're standing outside at the practice field right now. Coaches are starting to arrive. For those wondering, we have not seen any players come in yet, but I'm sure they'll be arriving here in the next 5 to 10 minutes as it's, 8:22. They normally get here about 8:30, the specialists.
It rained overnight here a little bit, but it's really it was foggy almost, Jerry,
Foggy.
like a
Foggy
dewy
mist.
Yeah, and so there's gonna be I'm sure they're gonna be a little cautious in some drills today because there's gonna be a lot of dew on the grass, but no rain currently, which means we get an opportunity to see these guys. It should be a lot of fun. I put up an article this morning on Texas Football about my predictions, some bold predictions for this weekend. Jerry put up some stuff that a thread to get us going for the day, and Blake now is playing a video that makes us all want to go get on that grass. Right?
That makes me want to play golf. I'm sorry.
Golf? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's
chase a little white ball.
That's great. That's a great fairway. It's a great fairway.
But long story short, the lights are on. Sunrise wasn't until 7:40 this morning here in Austin because of the daylight savings move, or however you want to put that on. Is it daylight savings or central? I don't know. Whatever. Sunrise wasn't until 7:45, so the lights on the practice field are on right now, and we'll probably stay on with the overcast skies. But we're ready for it. Should be a lot of fun. Ready to see Sark, and I wrote this yesterday. I mean, yesterday was Sark's birthday. Today he gets to open his presents. So excited about that for him, and for us to go see guys like Cam Coleman, Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers, Michael Masunas, Ian Gerard, Bo Masco, Raheem Biles, Rasheed Biles has been, I've been told, really, really impressive in workouts. So a lot of newcomers, a lot of freshmen as well that we'll be talking about. We're going to have a special update post our media window viewing period. Rod Babers and I, along with Rod Babers, myself, and Jerry, are going to be here giving you guys a live update immediately following the practice window availability. And then Steve Sarkisian steps to the mic today at 11 o'clock after practice. We'll also have news and notes from that as well. Big day here at On Texas Football, so stay tuned.
And obviously one of the big things I'm going to be looking for out after the guys show up, the who's who, is who's in a and is in the red jerseys today, or who is not taking part. Because we got the list from Sark and put out by Texas. Obviously, Art's not expected to take part today. Xavier Filsaime, believe Ty Anthony Smith,
Trevor
Gooseby.
Yeah.
Who else is not taking part today? Has there been any minor injuries?
Jonah Williams.
Jonah Williams may be here to watch, but obviously not taking part. But who else may have a minor ding or something from the offseason work ahead of spring practice? We'll be watching to see. That's one of the first things we're going to be looking for is who else is held out.
All right, we got to get to some good thoughts. Marcus, I got to ask you, man, your memories of first day of spring ball. What going through your head when you were going through this exact same thing?
It's always a great time where you get to, transition, right, from that off-season work into some real ball. And granted, they probably still have a week or so before they really get to strap on some pads and really make it happen. But it's kind of that first opportunity of what this 2026 football, team is going to be. And so I think I just always remember being really excited to get out there and have a chance to, kind of prove yourself. And, I had an opportunity to go through some of the stuff that these guys did with, some assistant coaches change over, defensive coordinator with, Will Muschamp, being out there on the field with them for the first time and, wanting to make a really good impression. So those are some of the things that I remember. And I imagine that all of these guys are kind of chomping at the bit because they know that they left some meat on the bone from the 2025 season. So should be, a great opportunity for them to go out there and put it on the grass.
I've got to be honest, Jerry. I like his shirt better than I like his hoodie better than your hat.
Well, somebody's asking in the chat, is this an SMU hat? Of course not. This is Saxe High. Head coach Red Barons has always been a great dude to me. Devin Duvernay obviously went to high school at Saxe, played in the Under Armour All-America game. I picked this hat up along the way. This is just
where did Marcus get that shirt hoodie? Who cares where you got the hat? Where did you get that hoodie? That is a strong looking hoodie, buddy.
Man, look, every year, I think it's usually around like late summer, right? Nike starts putting out their college line. And so I tend to just order a bunch of stuff and then figure out which I want to keep. And then whatever I don't, I return. So I think this one I grabbed a couple years ago. So, yeah.
Hey, Marcus, so the women won the basketball tournament yesterday.
Absolutely.
Big time win, I thought, for them. What do you think? What did you make of that win for the ladies?
I thought it was great. It was dominating really from start to finish. And, I'm a season ticket holder, so I love getting the chance to get out there and see the ladies. And it's great. I think Jerry nailed it. When Coach Schaefer said there in the video that Blake played, that you punched a ticket and gave yourself the opportunity to be able to play in Fort Worth. So for 2 weekends in a row, you don't have to leave the state, and we'll have a pretty good crowd of support behind you. So I think it was excellent for the ladies, and really was happy to see Justice really take another step in her development, and it's kind of amazing to see what they've been able to do, and hopefully they can really go out there and put on a run and go for the national title. I think I heard Jerry saying this last night. You certainly hope that somewhere along the way there would be an upset so that you don't have to face UConn potentially. But this is what you come to Texas for, and you play the games that you have throughout the season, and as well as you have played throughout the SEC season and tournament to set yourself up big for March. So March Madness is here, football and basketball alike.
I love it.
Hey, we got an interesting question here. Coach DeBuck, who's been on with us, a couple other people asked, when does Texas update their roster? That's the great unknown. It should. They normally will give out a updated roster this morning to us.
They will. We'll get that roster list around 8:50 this morning, Coach.
Yeah.
They come out and usually they hand it out, and they'll do and we'll post this on Twitter as well as on TexasFootball.com. For those of you guys, we basically just take a screenshot real quick of it, and it'll be the numbered list and then the alphabetical list. On one side's alpha, one side's numbered list, so you guys can have that for your own keeping.
All right, guys. Well, let's talk some more spring ball here. Jerry, you had 6 players that you're keeping an eye on as we head into the spring. And I'm going to put this graphic up here, and we can all discuss this as a whole here. But you have these 6 guys in particular.
This was more my first day kind of look, guys that I'm really interested to see. And it starts with KJ Lacey, because this is kind of KJ Lacey spring, right? And with Arch Manning limited, this is a huge opportunity for KJ Lacey. In the way it works out, is that KJ Lacey is the number 2 guy. So the more reps he gets with the ones this spring is actually really helpful for KJ Lacey, but also helpful for the Texas Longhorns. And he's been taking the first team reps in the offseason work. But so KJ Lacey, this is a huge opportunity for him. Obviously, Diabell will redshirt. MJ Morse will be the 3rd team guy, but this is a great opportunity for KJ Lacey get to see his growth physically and as a player. Then Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers at running back. And we could argue, we could put 30 guys on this list, but Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers, look what Coach Matt DeBuck, one of the things that he said during our interview that was so interesting just in passing was that Dave Doran told him that Hollywood Smothers is NFL ready. And why would you go back to college? Well, so a guy that his head coach thought was NFL ready decides to come back to college and will probably be your number 1 running back. Then there's Cam Coleman. Then there's Rasheem Biles, obviously. And then there's Bo Masco, who I think Bo Masco is very, very maybe underrated guy in this portal class for Texas, because whenever you have a star-studded offensive class, those guys are going to take up a lot of the oxygen in the room. But Bo Masco, I think, is a very underrated addition to this Texas team.
I look at this list, and every single one of them, except for KJ Lacey, transfer portal.
Yeah.
And you know what? You didn't mention Ian Giffard in that list. Yeah. You didn't mention Michael Masunas, Melvin Siani. Those could be 3 starters for the Longhorns as well. I mean, I think we're going to find out today just how strong the Texas portal class is. Did they really get – I mean, I'm telling you, behind the scenes, they think they may have signed 8 NFL players in the portal. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's better than any recruiting class Texas has ever had because of the age group that these guys come in at.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not freshmen, and you get signed 8 freshman NFL players. These are juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely jacked about that.
I can pass along that I was told a few days ago that it's depending on when you weigh a guy in the day when he's as big as Ian Giffard is. He's down 12 to 15 pounds. And I think they'd like to cut that to 22 to 25 pounds down from last year. I did not say right hash and kicker. I have a little more confidence until I see last year Mason Shipley got my PTSD removed, but you never know when it can show back up. I will say that.
It'll be interesting if they even try to kick in this weather, really.
I bet they send them inside.
I bet they do spin the kickers inside because It's ripe for a groin pool on wet turf with or wet grass with these kind of guys.
This is ripe for a growing pool for media on the field today. I just want to say that. It's Marcus. Somebody could go down.
Well, we're going to hope that doesn't happen today. I'm not wishing that on either of them.
If I had a prediction today, it'd be somebody in the media has a slip and fall.
Hey, Marcus, did you have somebody that you were really interested to see this year or this spring out of that group, or some of your own?
I definitely like Jerry's list there. I think for me, for whatever reason, of course, these guys are coming in from the portal largely. And Bobby, you just mentioned they think 8. I mean, you showed a list of 6 and 5 of those right there were transfers. I can't imagine that those 5 aren't NFL players, as long as they're able to stay healthy. You add in Melvin Siani, Ian Jafar, and Michael Masunis. I'm at 8 right there. And I imagine there's, a couple more that we're missing. But, I think it's on top of the transfers, the shiny new toy and freshman is kind of always the thing. I'd like to see how involved Jermaine Bishop Jr. is early on. And then also, Tyler Atkinson, Rocky Cummings, even Kosi Apala and Derek Cooper. I'd like to kind of see how they all look off the hoof after having gone through some winter workouts. Early on, those guys that are graduating high school early, they're kind of drinking from a fire hose. How does that translate from the workouts onto the field and how they begin to process the game? So long road ahead, right, before we get to game 1, but this is the first step. So that's probably where I'm looking early on.
So players are starting to kind of spill out onto the field. We're not allowed to report on them until the 9 o'clock hour when we get an official access. But players are actually getting onto the field right now. Arriving, and I think the first bus came through. There'll be a couple more buses of guys. We're here right in front of the LBJ school and right across from it, the Dennius practice fields. All right, before we go any further, I need to say thank you to one of our key sponsors. That is our friends over at Vonlane. Guys, airlines are at it again. You've probably heard one of the big ones just moved to assigned seating. But here's the catch. If you buy their cheapest fare, you actually don't get the seat. You don't get the seat assignment until you check in. If you want to pick your seat, that'll be an extra $80 or more. Oh, and they're charging for checked bags now too. It just keeps adding up. Meanwhile, Vonlane is out here doing the opposite. No bag fees, no surprise charges, no TSA lines. You show up at a beautiful hotel terminal, walk on in minutes, and settle into one of just 22 oversized leather seats with complimentary Wi-Fi, snacks, drinks, and hot towel service. On select departures, you even get a complimentary meal. And the Wi-Fi, it's Starlink internet that actually works. Try saying that about the airline's Wi-Fi at 30,000 feet. Vonlane just added more departure times between Houston and San Antonio and between Fort Worth and Austin. So it's easier than ever to fit a trip into your schedule. Vonlane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, and Knoxville. Visit vonlane.com. Use promo code OTF26 to get $20 on your first trip. Vonlane, your private jet on wheels.
And Jerry, if you'd be so kind to tell everyone about Ridge Wallets this morning.
I'm actually, Blake, I'm going to do Harry's first.
Oh, okay.
Because I haven't shaved this morning.
Me either.
Question for the chat. Why are razor refills still like $30 and dole out so fast? That's why I switched to Harry's Plus. And honestly, I'm hooked. Wow, good one. The first thing you notice is weighted metal handle. It's not cheap plastic. It gives you a way better control while you shave. The blades are German engineered and owned at 3 different angles, so they cut clean without that tugging feeling. That's a bad feeling. The blade spacing helps them glide smoothly and keeps them from clogging up like the stuff you grab at the store. Plus, every cartridge has a lubricating strip with aloe and vitamin E to keep your skin calm while you shave. And the price is a big reason why I switched as well. Harry's owns their own blade factory in Germany, so they cut out the middleman and keep costs way lower. For a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/ontexas. That set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, 1 refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head to harrys.com/ontexas to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about him. And apparently that's the show where Marcus is well dressed in And I wear high school hats, so I'm not.
Marcus is stylish, Jerry.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So I had to throw my hat on. I realized I hadn't shaved either. So the hair reminded me of that.
Hey, no one ever called Jerry Hamilton well dressed. Just well traveled.
No.
I've got to say this. There are recruits in town. Some just walked by. So
Spring break.
Yep, spring break. And he's big. I don't know exactly who he is, but he's pretty darn big. As we sit here and talk about this, Jerry, Blake, and Marcus, I put up an article this morning over on Texas football, and I kind of did some what I would call, Jerry, predictions of sorts, what I thought would be going on this coming practice and entire spring. And I made some predictions, and I wanted to go through those real quick, if you don't mind, and talk about those predictions. Best newcomer, I had Cam Coleman. Surprising upperclassman, Jerry. I went with Warren Roberson.
He's very happy you said that.
Yes, I know he's very happy, but
Bob, but you just got a flag in the chat for that one. Block in the back.
My point on that, though, is I do think that he is more of a Will Muschamp type of guy, and I have heard that he's kind of locked in a little bit more than ever, maybe. Yeah. Physical transformation is always a good one, right?
Yes.
We've talked about this. You see guys as they go from semester to semester and what they look like. I hesitate to say this, but the one that I'm looking for today is Smith Orogbo.
Yeah,
it's like we know Zena is going to look good, and Justice Terry and Lance Jackson. That's kind of who those guys are. But Smith Orogbo, because of the injury, didn't have that opportunity necessarily to blow up, right? Because he couldn't put weight bearing on one of his legs for the first 9 months he was here, basically. So I'm interested to see that. Most improved red shirt, I predicted Jordan Coleman and Josiah Sharma. I thought that was a good one. Someone no one is mentioning but should be, I put Amari Winston.
Yeah.
He certainly doesn't get the press that Nick Townsend does, right? And you have Masunis coming in, Spencer Shannon returning. Amari Winston, they like him a lot behind the scenes. So don't be surprised if we don't hear a little bit about him this spring. I went with best freshman, and this is where I want to ask you your thoughts. I went with Derek Cooper. That's a tall
task.
Yeah, who is going to be, and it's a prediction. I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
I went with Derek Cooper.
Yeah.
Who do you got?
Man, that's a tough question.
Jermaine Bishop.
I mean,
Tyler Atkinson.
If Ryan Niblett wasn't back on this team, I would go easily Jermaine Bishop
because
he'd be your pump.
Yeah.
He'd be in the return game. That's a tough question. I mean, Tyler Atkinson, I don't think there's great depth at linebacker, and especially this spring, right? I mean, Tynthie Smith coming off the shoulder. I think he's going to get a lot of reps early. He may even start with the twos. I could see that. So that's going to be interesting. This is going to be a tough team to break in on for freshmen, truly. I think if somebody steps up from the pack of freshmen and they end up in the two deep after the spring, I think that's a pretty big accomplishment on this team. I think guys are going to play, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see there. But I might even go Jermaine Bishop.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair. I mean, we know it. Hey, Marcus, I put next one down was most physically impressive. I listed 3 guys because I think they're all different, but all impressive as you know what. Justice Terry, Zena, and Lance Jackson, all defensive ends. Terry can roll into defensive tackle. What are your thoughts on who you think is going to be the most physically impressive that we're going to see today? Because this is, again, it's a prediction. It could be Ian Drefford by the time I come in and say, dude's 375 pounds and looks like he's 320. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, my thought initially was Justice Terry, just because I still can't get kind of like that high school picture of him out of my head.
Come on, Blake, don't we have that saved?
Yeah, it's got to be somewhere out there. And then, of course, Zena, and then, not to be forgotten was Brad Spence, man. Like, he was a guy that really impressed me when I just saw him when he first got to Texas. He's ripped. And so I think it's, probably one of those 3 for me. And then I'm also curious to see how some of these offensive linemen, that have kind of been baking a little bit, how they've taken to a second or third offseason in the program, as well as even what a Melvin Siani looks like coming in from Wake Forest.
Marcus, you know my nickname for Justice Terry, why he's number one off the bus as long as he's at Texas, right?
I don't. What is
Planet Fitness.
it? Yeah, Josie remembered it.
Anybody that's nicknamed Planet Fit, there you go. Anybody that's nicknamed Planet
That's crazy.
Fitness, you're first off the bus.
It needs to be Gold's Gym. Gold's Gym's owned by a UT
that's
grad.
true.
Yeah, we need to call him Gold's Gym. There we go. All right. Hey, the other guy that I had, unbelievable. I never in my life. maybe Marcus could have reasonably approximated that picture.
Did y'all have anybody on your teams that looked like that physically, Marcus? Was there anybody? Small ball and pads mostly.
Yeah.
Honestly, man, one of the guys that was like really physically impressive, I know y'all will remember him, but just seeing him around the locker room and just hanging out and stuff, was Albert Hardy.
Oh, yeah.
It was
I saw
jacked.
the Galena Park. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Albert Hardy was always pretty, like just cut up. And even Garnett Smith. Smith had really big arms.
Yeah.
Like he took to the curls quite a bit. So
yeah.
Those two were probably up there for me.
Albert Hardy's still one of the funnier commitment stories I've covered. The head coach called me on the way back. He had taken him up for an unofficial visit. And he called me after that, and he said, "Hey, I'm just giving you a heads up. Albert's going to commit to Texas." And I said, "Okay, why?" He said he didn't know. That's how good a recruiter background was.
He said he didn't know. Hey, going back through this list a little bit, best athlete. I had a little bit of problem with this.
Yeah,
Colin Simmons is such a great athlete. People don't it's hard to appreciate how athletic he is. I'm not saying he's the best basketball player or something, or best baseball.
Right.
Like, not in that form of athlete, but just the dexterity at his size and agility and explosiveness. That combination is freaky. And then Cam Coleman, I am told behind the scenes, is a freak athlete.
Yeah.
Like, you won't believe X, Y, and Z that he does.
Yeah. I would be shocked if Jelani McDonald isn't up there. Like, if we ever can ask the guys that directly, like, hey, who's aside from yourself, right? Because they're all gonna always pick themselves. But I would be shocked if Jelani McDonald wasn't one of them. And man, even back to your best freshman, I have a really hard time believing that isn't Jermaine Bishop Jr. In the running for that. He has a different level of juice to him, a different wiggle, a different twitch than pretty much anybody else on the team that I can really think of. So, but I think Jelani, the one that makes me stick out so much about Jelani is that Cedric Griffin is the one that first told me about him, because I think he was maybe watching his son or track team or something that he was helping coach, and he saw Jelani jump. And whenever I hear Ced G, kind of talking about track, he was somebody that, ran track in high school, and whose opinion I really, certainly respect in football as well, but especially track. When I remember, we were recruiting Jelani and he mentioned him, that's always stuck out to me. So he's probably my guess.
I would say this. I was told that Cam Coleman may be better than him.
Really?
Yes.
Well, hey,
let's see.
It's not bad.
I'm worried right now that we're not going to get a chance to see some of the athleticism on the field today because of the wetness of the field. So we may have to wait on that one. Quickest, Jermaine Bishop, Raleek Brown. I think those are self-explanatory. Fastest, I went Cade Phillips and Ryan Wingo. And I'm talking about the guys that go from 25 to 40 yards.
Yeah.
Really, those they have that acceleration. They have good acceleration, but when it's downfield, they still have more speed left in them. They got a little more gas in the tank. They're not on you at top. Who will win a starting spot? No one is thinking about. I went with Jaden Chapman at left guard because Lawrence Seymour is not here. Yeah. He's ahead of Dylan Sikorsky on the depth chart right now.
And Jordan Coleman's playing left tackle.
Is working at left tackle. Yeah. And so that's a prediction there. And then this is the other one I want to think about today is how talented is this team, scale of 1 to 10. And I'm just telling you, everything I've heard from behind the scenes, it's a 10. And I'm anxious to see what they show us here today. We got to get going here in a little bit, Jerry. So we need to tell folks one last time about some of our sponsors, if you don't mind. And Marcus, by the way, is going to stay with Blake after we get going here in about 3 minutes.
Jerry, if you would be so kind now, to tell us all about Ridge Wallet.
Yeah. You know, the new wallet, not the giant crusty leather brick that was falling apart for years. There's Bobby's Ridge Wallet. Did your back hurt because you were sitting uneven with those crusty leather bricks back in the day? Well, Ridge is a unique, slim, and modern design that holds up to 12 cards plus cash, made with premium materials like aluminum, titanium, and carbon fiber. There's over 50 colors and styles to choose from. Show your wallet off to the camera as Bobby just did. All Ridge products have a lifetime warranty. This is literally the last wallet you'll ever have to buy. Does it give you peace of mind knowing that all Ridge wallets have RFID blocking technology, keeping you safe from digital pickpocketers? It should. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off at Ridge by using the code ONTexas, all caps, at checkout. Just head to Ridge and use the code ONTexas at checkout, and you're all set. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Of course, that's On Texas Football.
Good stuff there. All right, guys. Well, we will let y'all go before I tell everyone about our next sponsor. Bobby, when will y'all be back?
We'll be back around 10 o'clock, we think, depending on how long the media window session is. And we will have an update. Myself, Jerry, and Rod Babers will be with you guys.
All right. See y'all then. Bye, y'all. All right, Marcus, before we get to some more stuff, I need to tell everyone about one of our other sponsors. It's one that I just absolutely love. That's Hexclad. Go look at the pan you've been using since college. If it's warped, everything sticks to it, and it smells vaguely like burned eggs and poor decisions, it might be time for some new pans. That's why I switched to Hexclad. These things are awesome. They combine stainless steel performance with non-stick convenience, so you actually get a real sear, but cleanup doesn't turn into a full workout afterward. And what I love is you don't have to baby them. Metal utensil, fine. Dishwasher, it's fine as well. Oven safe up to 900 degrees, also fine. These pans are built like tanks. And the heat control is legit. Cooking actually gets easier instead of feeling like you're fighting the pan the whole time. There's a reason that Gordon Ramsay uses Hexclad at home and in his restaurants, and every piece comes with a lifetime warranty. So this is basically the last set of pans you'll ever buy. Don't go through another spring using the same busted pans you should have thrown out years ago. For a limited amount of time, our listeners get 10% off your order with our exclusive link. Just head to hexclad.com/OnTexas. Support our show. Check them out one more time. Hexclad, HEXCLAD.com/OnTexas. Make sure to let them know we sent you. Spring clean your kitchen the smart way with Hexclad. All right, man. Well, we're going to get to people's questions. We got quite a bit to talk about this morning. And I want to take the super chat, Marcus, from Longhorn Frenzy. Says, good morning, fellas. My annual who's first off the bus question. Looking forward to spring ball updates. But who would be your first guy off the bus? Would it be Justice Terry, Marcus?
Yeah, and so I guess the question I would have for Longhorn Frenzy is he literally mean, kind of the proverbial first guy off the bus, or is he looking to see like who's the first person at practice? I know for years that was DeAndre Moore. So maybe, Bobby and the guys can be able to tell us that a little bit later. But I would probably have it be Justice Terry, or honestly, maybe even Ian Jaffard. I think seeing a guy that big at times is, can be a bit, shocking, even for guys that, have a pretty good size on themselves as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to ask you, so I think it was Friday on social media, on the On Texas Football Twitter account. I actually asked people, what offensive position group they were most excited to see during spring ball. Yeah. And then I also put it up again on today's episode of Coffee and Football. Now on X, the wide receivers was 40%, running backs 36%. And we're kind of getting that on the YouTube poll as well. Running back is at 40%, wide receivers at 34%. So it seems a lot of people are more excited to see running back than anything. But what about you, Marcus? What position group are you the most excited about offensively, and why?
Offensively, for me, it was going to be running back as well. I think I voted running back when you put the polls up, Blake, only because I want to see what these guys' movement looks like and how Sark is deploying them. I know obviously the offensive line goes a long way to telling that story, but I truly believe that, that kind of works in tandem as well based on the type of backs that you have. And so I think, based on how we see them deployed a bit and, where they maybe show up in the pecking order, even the guys, kind of behind Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown, where they start to kind of fall into the pecking order and how the staff, not only views, what their work has been coming out of the winter conditioning program, but then once they get, a bit later in spring, will tell me quite a bit in, kind of what scheme it looks like they're starting to move towards and how they're going to go about deploying these guys in the system. I've always, understood the appeal of the wide receiver, especially, having a Cam Coleman in, but to some degree, I don't have as many question marks there as I do, what this running back room is going to ultimately develop into. So that'll be the one I'm probably watching the most closely on the offensive side of the ball.
You see Michelle here says, I hope Michael Terry can make an impact. His name's brought up a lot when we talk about running backs. I mean, what do you see for him in year 2? I mean, what would be a successful season for Michael Terry?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest success would be somehow if he could, grab the bull by the horns, no pun intended, and be able to be the one to claim that, third spot, essentially, because I think it would take some kind of Herculean effort by anyone to supplant Hollywood Smothers and Raleigh Brown right now. They're both, experienced at the position, both all conference from their respective conferences that they're transferring in from, and guys that Sark identified as someone that he could utilize, as well as called by name, right, in his press conferences. And that's something that we've always, listened for, is like, is he extolling, the virtues and giving a lot of praise to, different guys early on. And I think it sounds like, each of these guys has really bought in to this point, as well as had a good understanding that they'll be better in tandem. Right. And so that, kind of ability to play off of one another. And granted, it was a completely different style of runner. But if you think back to like when you had Reggie Bush and Lindell White, you could just see they were excited playing with one another. They were excited when the other one performed. They were excited when, okay, one of them did something big, and now I get an opportunity to go in and showcase my talent. So for Michael Terry, if he has, something in him that he's able to go and grab that, then that would be awesome. Beyond that, he's just going to have to find a way to make an impact. It's almost, I think I heard maybe Jerry and Rod talking about this, almost kind of the Ryan Niblett track, just continuing to be so consistent, continuing to be so reliable that at some point or another, the coaches give you an opportunity. It's challenging for him as a taller back, that he's going to absolutely have to be very, very physical. And so I think that is, one of those deals. You don't typically see a taller back that is what you would consider a finesse player, right? So you think about your Eddie Georges and obviously the ultimate freak of nature and Derrick Henry, but I don't want to put those kind of lofty expectations on them. But even back to like an old Colorado team and like a Chris Brown, like those guys, if you're taller, you have to be physical, and so that is what he is going to have to do if he's looking to carve out a specific role in the running back room. But I think a lot of his value overall is just going to come to where he can, fit in within, the grander scheme of the team in its entirety.
Another name that I've seen mentioned in the chat quite a bit today has been Cohen Brown, incoming freshman wide receiver. I'm going to put his highlights up, but Bobby had some early returns on him that were very positive, Marcus. That he's already catching the eye of some people. What are your thoughts on Brown, and do you think we could see him make an impact this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I mean, I think a lot of these guys, one of the things that you can tell with, especially at the wide receiver position for the high schoolers that were recruited, is they're touchdown scorers. I mean, these are guys that, can put points on the board in a hurry. I've heard a bit that, Cohen Brown is one of the more physical guys in that room, which is always good to hear. And he, possesses a strong, speed element to his game as well. So I think all of those dynamics fit, not only perfectly for a Sarkisian offense, but in the SEC, we've often, kind of wondered, okay, who's going to be the next one in that ilk of a Jordan Whittington, right? That's, really physical, takes pride in his blocking, and then that brings opportunities his way. And I would be shocked if Cohen Brown is in amongst that. And, as you're showing these highlights, Blake, I mean, this, as well as anyone, like he wasn't playing in a chump district, right? He's not playing against guys that are scrubs or, all due respect, this isn't 6-man, 7-man football or anything like that. Like he's playing against the best of the best, and he's out there, torching them left and right. So I think that's, awesome to see. And it's been great to hear that, he's really taken to the offseason workouts and that they, are expecting him to, really push a number of these guys. So he'll get opportunities, this spring with some of the guys, kind of bouncing back and recovering from some of those offseason surgeries.
Yeah, that's what gets me is, I mean, just as you said, the competition level. I mean, he's playing against Division I opponents, week in and week out, and that number one in the district they were in, but in the season as a whole through the playoffs, whatever it may be.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of reason to be excited for him.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's see here. Sailor Joe has a question while we're talking about freshmen. He says, Jermaine Bishop, do you think Sark keeps him to offense or defense? Sailor Joe says he'll have to choose.
I think he's an offensive guy. I think he certainly could be a great defensive player if that was what we needed. But I've talked about this a little bit before. We talked about this last year, before the season, that the only concern I had kind of in that wide receiver room was, excuse me, who was going to be your guy that like really had juice, and people have different definitions of it. In my time, it was a guy like a Ramonce Taylor or even a Robert Timmons, like somebody that just had a different twitch about him, a different, kind of wiggle, a different feel for the game. And I think, Jermaine Bishop Jr. fits that bill. I mean, he's crushed any number of Texas State, football records. And, he just moves different on the field than most guys. And so to me, I think that's why he, ends up being a perfect fit for Sark's offense. Is someone you can sprinkle in there and has a completely different dynamic than really anybody else in that receiver room. So that's, I think he's pretty firmly at home on the offensive side of the ball.
Man, he's just electric.
Yeah.
Electric. Yeah. I mean, you look at that, his highlight reel, you got a good player when the highlight reel is like 15 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. And the bulk of them are touchdowns again, right? Like Sark is after guys that are going to score touchdowns, and not just because, I mean, obviously you have a guy like a Cam Coleman that can do it in a variety of ways because of, his wingspan and where you can put the ball and, often make your quarterback right, even if he's wrong. But when you look at someone like Jermaine Bishop Jr., man, I mean, you said the word perfectly. I was searching for it, but electric is exactly how I would describe him.
Yeah, he had that one game. I remember because I had to make a graphic for it. I don't know if it was at the end of the season or the second round of the playoffs when he had like 300 rushing yards. He had receiving yards. He had passing yards, but he had 5 touchdowns, man. I mean, he was just like a threat all over the field. Just unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. Dave actually wants to talk about linebacker for a moment, so that'll be right up your alley. The player that keeps getting overlooked that was picked up in the portal is Justin Cryer, the linebacker from FSU, says actually. Who do you predict to be your starting linebackers for Texas, Marcus?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be how Muschamp chooses to deploy different people on the defense. But, I mean, if we're just kind of looking at the graphic that you have here pulled up, I mean, it has to be Biles, and I think it has to be Ty Anthony Smith. Now, not sure how much we'll see Ty Anthony in the spring. So, that certainly is a great opportunity for Justin Cryer, a guy that's played some ball, but I think he's not, maybe as adept to be moving in space as a Biles and Ty Anthony Smith. So, I think you would see him more in, against some teams that maybe are trying to be a little bit more run heavy and or attempt to shorten the game, right? One of the things that, this offense will likely face is teams playing a little bit of keep away if they can. Because you probably don't want to get into a shootout, against Arch and all the weapons that he has at his disposal. So in games like that, you might see Justin Cryer a little bit more, or, as you, are trying to maybe salt something away a bit. But I think what I would likely expect more times than not is probably a lot of 2 linebacker deployments, and then more of a 5 DB type situation with any number of combinations of defensive linemen. So my top 2 would be Rasheem Biles and Ty Anthony Smith, by the time the season gets around. But I've also talked about it, man. I'd be interested. I wouldn't be shocked, to hear Rocky Cummings making a little bit of noise, and then obviously Tyler Atkinson has been well documented. What his ability is. And then you'll probably have, Brad Spence mixing in there a bit as well. But I've heard some really impressive things about Rocky Cummings. And, again, standing next to him, I think it was maybe when he was on his visit or a visit, whether it was official or unofficial, for that Vanderbilt game. I was pretty impressed with his, his size and probably ability to put on some even more weight. I mean, he's a legit 6'4", kind of guy. So think those guys would, be where I land at the linebacker position.
Talking about Atkinson, because he's another name that people have been, saying they're excited to see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, number one linebacker coming in, a ton of hype around him. I mean, in your opinion, Marcus, what kind of season would he have to, not warrant the hype, I guess, but to be considered a successful freshman campaign? I mean, assuming he gets on the field and does his thing, what do you, I guess, number one, what are your expectations for him? And number two, what would you say would be a good season for him?
For everything that I've heard about the young man, he's someone that really takes pride in his craft. And so I think the first thing that he's going to absolutely have to nail down is just an understanding of the system. I know everyone is going to be quick to want to see him get on the field, right? But I know he's had an opportunity to work out with DJ, with Derek Johnson, who, for my money is certainly one of the best linebackers that ever walked the 40. That being said, as good as DJ was, it took him some time to even process. Now, they certainly forced him on the field because he was a force multiplier, right? Like he had to get on the field, but it took him some time even to start. And that's not always just because, you're not playing a guy early enough. You have to have a good understanding, because especially at that linebacker position, I mean, you're tying in the front and back end together, right? So if he doesn't have a full understanding of that, that sometimes can create, issues and put you in a situation where an opposing, offensive coordinator can try and pick on you some, get you singled up on a matchup that would like. And you have to think about, again, the teams that they're playing have some high-powered offenses and have some, really, really talented offensive play callers, whether that's a Lane Kiffin or a Josh Heupel or even my man at Mississippi State, whose name is escaping me right now. Like, they're going to play a number of teams, even, early on, right? You're going to have to go up against Julian Sayin in that offense. And now you have Arthur Smith coming in, so another kind of NFL concept-driven kind of guy. And so when you have someone that is young, like a Tyler Atkinson, what you may try to do is take advantage of their aggression, right? And their desire to make plays early on. And so I think the benefit that Tyler Atkinson has is, aside from some of the guys that, I named that I know he's trained with, you have some elder statesmen in the room as well that can, help you. And so you have a Rasheem Biles, you have a Ty Anthony Smith, who I bet is spending a lot of time with Tyler Atkinson. And so then when you shift to what is a successful season, I think it's earning, by the time you're really in the throngs of SEC play, earning some consistent playing time and continuing to develop into a player that Will Muschamp can trust. And the more that they can trust you, the more you can get out there and play. So I would love to see him early on, special teams, on kickoff, flying down the field and covering and showing that he doesn't, view himself as any bigger than the team. And that's where a lot of times you begin to earn your coach's trust. And that's when they, give you an opportunity to rotate more in. So I don't know if it's a certain number of tackles or anything, Blake. I don't know if it's a percentage of the time he's on the field or anything like that. But the hope is that by the back half of the season, you're having that conversation of, okay, you're no longer a freshman and you're starting to, factor in a way that makes an impact positively for the Texas defense.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, and kind of switching gears here, and we'll even use this to transition to baseball because we still got to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But everybody has an opinion on Jonah Williams.
Sure,
and so,
sure.
Obviously we reported yesterday on ontexasfootball.com that he would not participate in spring ball today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he can go watch, he can sit there, he can soak it all in. But you also factor in, he got injured, most likely diving for a ball. I think it was on Friday, messed his shoulder up. The good news is Texas doesn't think it's going to be serious. But it almost seems like every day in the chat, you got a lot of people saying, oh, he needs to decide. He needs to pick a sport, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not picking on Bandit here. I'm just using this as an example because I had it started. But he says, I fear Jonah Williams is going to have to make a decision if he can't stay healthy. But what are your thoughts? I mean, do you truly think he has to make a decision if he's wanting to be, if he's wanting to play both? Can he make it work? What do you think?
It's tough. I mean, I think if he stays healthy, eventually he'll have to make a decision, right? But I don't know if that's necessarily time bound per se. I've heard Jerry say a couple times, and maybe I kind of agree that, following this football season would probably be an opportunity for him to decide it. But again, I think people have to remember too, like a big part of his recruitment was he had a desire to play both. And, Texas had given him that opportunity. He already had a relationship with Slosh prior to him taking over as the head man for the baseball program. You see all the time how he and Sark are at different games together. So that they have some communication. So I wouldn't say that he has to make a decision now. I think the biggest thing for Jonah is getting healthy and staying healthy. He is a type of player that's the gift and a curse. He plays with a level of passion and aggression and physicality in both sports. And so that doesn't always lend to, you staying maybe as healthy as you would like him to be. And so I think it really just kind of boils down to him getting healthy and then going from there. So, I don't know if I like this right here. He doesn't necessarily have to make a decision, but he's on the clock. And for me, the biggest piece of that clock is his ability to stay healthy. I know the young man absolutely wants to, do both as best as he can. But, if I had to, guide him one way or another, I would probably just say, hey, take a look at this thing from maybe like a life decision, perspective, right? As we always talk about when, guys are just solely picking from football. Well, look at this one. Which one do you feel is going to give you the most longevity? And, I love football, right? But I think, from my perspective, that he likely would have a better chance at staying healthier in the long term playing baseball. But, that's going to be for him and his family and the coaching staff to help him be able to come to that decision. But more than anything, he has to get healthy first. And that's just been something that he's, had a tough time doing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen a string of injuries, unfortunately, for him that have just, impacted him in both sports continuously. And so I don't know. I mean, you got the MLB draft, what someone said coming up that could make the decision for him. He has all the talent in the world in baseball. I mean, he's an outstanding outfielder. He can also pitch. I don't think we'll see him pitch at Texas ever.
Right.
But, the talent's there. So I don't know. Well, it's tough, man. I mean, what a problem to have if you're him to be so good in both sports.
Sure.
But, it also kind of sucks at the same time. I guess a catch-22 type deal. So
absolutely.
All right, man. Well, speaking of baseball, Texas is moving up in the polls, Marcus. You love to see that no matter the sport. The Longhorns are now number 2 in the D1 baseball poll. They were number 3 in perfect game. Or no, I'm sorry. They were number 2 in perfect game, and then they were number 3 in Baseball America. But undefeated Texas, 15-0. They'll take on Texas State on Tuesday. But somebody put a stat up, Marcus, and this is a shout out to the softball team as well. So in the 15 games that baseball has played, they have run ruled 6 of those.
Wow.
I don't remember how many games softball's played, but 11 of their games have been run ruled. So if you combine those two collectively, 44.7% of the games for baseball and softball have ended in a run rule. What a stat, man.
That's tough, man. And before this weekend series, when everyone was talking about us and SC being the 2 remaining undefeated teams, I had seen kind of the run differential. And I would be curious to see what our combined with softball and baseball is. I'd be shocked if anybody in the country has better. So maybe that can be a little something you can throw together for us there at some point, Blake. But man, I love seeing, the guys having the type of season that they're having to this point. Obviously, the competition is going to pick up here pretty soon.
Yep.
And yet, like, they have a perfect blend of, some great hitting, and that's without like Tenney even really, getting humming just yet. As they get into SEC play, it's going to be harder for guys to pitch around him. And then that pitching staff is awesome, man. So yeah. I really love, what Coach Schloss is doing. And I think, we have some really special games coming on. And, I kind of hinted at this last year. It was more around just because it was the 20th anniversary of our national championship season. But, if baseball can go out there and find a way to, raise a trophy, the last time that happened, the football team won it in the same year. So, I wouldn't mind baseball, softball going back to back, and then now all the pressure is on Sark and the boys. So it certainly looks like the sky's the limit for them. And then I saw somebody even mention in the chat. I'd be curious of your take on this too, Blake. LSU, man, like a few weeks back, if I had to pick a number one, to me it would have been LSU. I'm with Kozer, man. LSU certainly should fall much further. I think last week they went 1-4 across the whole week. Like that's pretty rough, man.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I mean, they're a team like Texas. They got all the talent in the world. I said, I think it was last week or the week before, they had dropped a couple of those midweek games, which, I mean, midweek games are kind of finicky, especially early in the year. You're trying to get some new guys in. You're trying to see where you stand as a team with some of your other players that aren't starting on the weekends. And so I didn't really pay attention to that. But what caught my eye about LSU was their lack of offensive production on the weekends. Like that was the thing, they had won their games, but nobody was really talking about that. And I was like, man, just something doesn't seem like that to catch up. I didn't expect for it to catch up with them this quick, like a week or two later. As you said, they won one game out of their last 4. So yeah, I mean, on one hand, you got a ton of talent. You got a phenomenal coach in Jay Johnson, who's, arguably one of the best coaches in baseball, especially college baseball. But something is amiss there. I'm not familiar enough with their program to know what it is, but it's definitely something that has caught my eye because the way that them and Texas and even Tennessee to an extent, even though they lost their head coach, are recruiting right now, like Texas, Tennessee, and LSU should be 1, 2, and 3 over the next few years. And right now, LSU does not look anything like a top 1, 2, or 3, even a top 10 or 15 team. In my opinion. And it's tough because when you get into the SEC, it's not like your competition is going to get, worse, right? Yeah.
So you want to have some kind of momentum so that not only when it gets to seeding and everything, like you have kind of already built up a resume, they're not leaving themselves much room for error. So I'm not mad at it. Hey, whatever, keep losing for all I care. But it was something that just kind of jumped out at me because it's just not something I've seen from them, here in recent years.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. It's very odd. It's very, very odd. We saw, Texas kind of have some of those stumbles last season. So it's nice to be on the other end of it this year and just flying through there and be 15-0. But yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, if there's any coach that can get them out of it, it's Jay Johnson. So we'll see what happens. But man, both baseball and softball for Texas just absolutely humming right now. And along with women's basketball, obviously.
Yeah. We got some good times on the 40 right now. And I know everybody's wanting, to hear some updates from spring football. I know Bobby is out there. Jerry's out there. I believe Rod and Jeff are going to be out there today, which I would doubt if CJ's not, unless he has, some kind of travel plan. So we'll have you guys covered here at On Texas Football. I know, Blake, what Bobby was saying, that we're going to have something maybe around the 10 o'clock hour. Is that right? Yep. Yeah, somewhere in there where they'll be back. And, obviously as we move forward, we'll have much more on-field stuff. And I think, maybe it even helps to kind of refresh the guys, everyone out there listening. Early on, they're just going to be in shorts and shirts, right? So it's not going to be a ton that you can glean from it other than, it's almost like a different version of the combine and the underwear Olympics, if you will. Like everybody's going to look phenomenal, but you won't really be able to tell a ton until the pads come on. So I think they go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Is that right this week?
I think, let me, I have the dang schedule. If I was on top of my game, Marcus,
you're good, man. I might have thrown you on the spot, but I think it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. Then I think they break because they'll have spring break and then they'll come back and kind of get back to it, or it's some version of that. I'll certainly get out there a couple of times. I'm going to try and get out there. Yeah, there it is. So, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then they'll go on spring break. And then after spring break, they'll shift to their Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, with Saturdays typically being when their scrimmages are held. And then all the way up to the spring game or whatever that, ultimately amounts to there in the middle of April. So, we certainly have you covered, and we'll have plenty more to talk about. So y'all keep sending your questions in, and we'll make sure that we do our best to, provide the information that we can.
Yeah. For sure. Well, hey, before we move on, Marcus, I need to tell everyone one more time about our sponsor today, and that's John Donovan, president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John is a proud Texas Ex's Life member who served on the Dallas Texas Ex's board for 15 years now and helps lead and support the Collin County Texas Ex's chapter while also consistently serving his fellow Longhorns as a certified financial planner and as the founder of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. And John was thrilled to see our Lady Longhorns basketball team win the SEC tournament championship yesterday. It was especially fitting since March is Women's History Month. So seeing our UT women making more great history was fantastic. And to celebrate their accomplishment, John is offering all OTF fans a free private consultation to learn how a certified financial planner like John can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. To schedule your free private consultation with John, simply call the Longhorn Wealth team at 972-707-4900 or schedule online at longhornwealth.net. Thank you, John, for sponsoring each and every Monday right here on Coffee and Football. One other thing that I wanted to ask you about, man, because, it's hard to find all the breaking news, and luckily the chat does a phenomenal job of bringing it. But Tua was released.
Oh, yeah.
Miami, I guess, while we've been on the air. And so a lot of people saying it's Quinn Ewers' time. Do you think, surely they're going to draft another. I'm not a huge NFL guy, but I would assume they're going to draft another quarterback fairly high. But is it Quinn Ewers' time in Miami, Marcus?
I probably not, right? So I would be the one to maybe temper your expectations there, largely because a couple of things. One, they designated Tua as one of the, I think, post-June 1 cuts, so it helps them, from a cap and dead money perspective. But then two, Josh McDaniels not Josh McDaniels, I'm sorry. I'm blanking. It's another McDaniel. The coach that Mike McDaniel, yes. Yeah. Mike McDaniel was fired, right? And he was the guy that had a pretty close eye on Quinn and was the one that kind of handpicked him, for the system, and was somebody that I remember at the pro day, paid pretty close attention to Quinn in advance of him even being able to, actually be draft eligible or declare for the draft rather. And so now with him being out of Miami, I imagine they're going to do something. That being said, look, I always was really high on Quinn. I always felt that, in hindsight, that he would end up, being viewed much more fondly and or appreciated much more than maybe he was at times during his time on the 40. And so I think he proved that, he has a place in the NFL. Whether or not that's immediately the starter for the Dolphins this year or not remains to be seen. And I haven't, kind of taken a look at where they fall on the draft board. I imagine they have any number of needs still. And so some of that will kind of, shake out depending on, how some of this draft season goes. But, the sky is the limit for the young man. If you get an opportunity, sometimes it's just not relinquishing it. It'll just depend on who they bring in. And, unfortunately, a lot of times in the NFL where you're drafted, and or what you're getting paid can dictate that. So, they could maybe trade for somebody or, draft someone in the April draft that, they feel pretty good about. But, Quinn certainly is going to be in the thick of it and, showed there down the stretch that he has the ability to start in the league.
Hey, and here's another one. And actually, I got something else regarding this too. Dave actually says Blake Sam Ehlinger just signed a 1-year, $2 million deal with the Denver Broncos. So he has another year in Denver now. That's awesome. But Marcus, I wanted while we're talking about the Broncos for a quick second, their quarterback Jarrett Stidham is actually going to join us this week and talk about playing quarterback in the SEC, and he's going to break down what he sees from Arch Manning. So, obviously he went to Baylor and Auburn out of Stephenville High School. It's not a Texas guy, but he knows his ball, and it'll be nice to get an outside perspective on Manning and, just playing quarterback in general when it comes to SEC play.
Yeah, I followed his career pretty closely. One of my best friends lives in the Fort Worth area, but went to Baylor, played football at Baylor, Ty Stimson. And so I always, kind of followed him pretty closely. A lot of the Baylor guys I tend to keep up with. I have a number of close friends that went there. So that'd be great to see Stidham on the show. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Good guy for sure. Known him a long time. All right. Let's go back to Texas for a minute here.
Absolutely.
Mike's Hard Takes. I know they'll rotate, But when it comes to starters at defensive tackle, who do you have, Marcus? And I'm going to put this up here so we have a little visual aid for both us and the chat.
So in the times that we've talked about this before, we kind of talk about it in terms of kind of a rotation of 4, hopefully 5, right? And then if they can, expand upon that, great. And so some of it will depend on the matchup. Some of it will depend on how Muschamp, decides to deploy them. But I think off the top, you would have to put Hero Canoe there, as well as Alex January. You certainly hope that Murad Watson has been able to, kind of get healthy. He was a bit banged up last season. And then obviously Ian Jaffard, the big fella, you brought him in for a reason to be that space eater in the middle. Justice Terry is the other one that's interesting because you can use him in a number of different spots along the defensive line. So if I had to kind of pick a top 4 to 5 rotation, it would be those guys across the top there. But listen, they are really high on Josiah Sharma. Jamarian Carlton, another guy that you could, probably see move along any number of spots on the defensive line. And then the remainder of the guys just, will be ones that'll have an opportunity to show improve. James Johnson is a young man that was extremely disruptive. And I think that'll be, kind of a constant drumbeat that you'll hear when it comes to, Muschamp's approach is how they can be disruptive in that game. And, the more that you're able to, really, what's the phrase I'm kind of looking for? Impose your will on an offense from the defensive line perspective, the better it is for the rest of your defense. And so I would say, if you're in your 2 DT sets, like what would be considered your, true defensive tackles, the ones that are going to play the bulk of your snaps, it'll probably be Hero Canoe and then a mixture of Alex January and Murad Watson if he's fully healthy. And then when you want to, have that true space eater in there, it's going to be Ian Jaffard.
A lot of people mentioning wanting to see Zion Williams too. Obviously coming out of LSU, Texas recruited him out of high school, so it'll be interesting to see what we get from him in spring ball.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. Let's make sure we didn't have any other super chats. I don't believe we do. So let's take some more questions. We're still having a lot of people asking about heights and weights and the roster. Hopefully, I have literally checked, Marcus, every morning for the last 3 or 4 weeks, just hoping that I have good news for people. And I literally just checked again. It has not been updated, but we should.
I was checking now too.
Sometime in the next 48 hours, probably.
Yeah, and what Bobby and them were saying, I know you're mixing and mastering all of this usually, but what Bobby was saying is that a lot of times what they'll do for the media availabilities is they'll hand out a sheet. Yeah. And so they're going to try and, if that remains to hold true, they'll, try and snap an image of that, and we'll be able to kind of glean from it what we can. I'm sure Blake will be able to drum up a great graphic for us, and, we'll be able to talk a bit more about that. But, I'm with you. I've been kind of trying to take a peek at it. I had to drive up to Dallas this morning. And so before I got on the road, it was something I kind of refreshed, and then it still hadn't seen it just yet, but I bet it's coming here pretty quick.
All right. Well, we've been
I've seen them. I've seen them stoking the fire in there.
Josh G. Manning says, I'm going to do it, Blake. First of all, thank you for the super chat. That's sort of thank you. I'm going to do it, Blake. Let's open the can of worms. I want offensive line talk. Yeah, man. I mean, everyone definitely has their own opinion about the offensive line.
They do.
What do you like? General thoughts, Marcus? What do you got for us?
Look, I'm gonna piss a lot of people off because I think they're actually pretty well positioned. I've had an opportunity to check the guys out at different points towards the tail end. Well, really at all points of the season, right? I usually get out there a couple of times during the preseason of camp. I usually get out there a considerable amount during the spring, and I just think that when you look at the collection of guys that they have, it will certainly be, incumbent upon them to figure out how to gel much sooner than they did last year, right? You obviously have to figure out what your right combination is, excuse me, much earlier in the season than what they finally landed upon. But I feel pretty good about this offensive line, man. And I'll be fine, jumping out there on the limb and being the one to take the bullets that, if it doesn't pan out that way. And certainly, again, right now, this is all hypothetical. I already told y'all they're not they're not getting in pads this week. So I can't tell you really anything about the offensive line beyond what they're kind of looking like in shorts and maybe how they move and what their body types look like. Obviously, we'll get some semblance of maybe what they're looking at for a spring lineup, but that's not going to be what the game one lineup is going to look like, because obviously you have Trevor Gooseby that's on the mend, and some different guys that are going to be moved into some different positions. But I think it's pretty safe to say that barring him just kind of falling on his face or something, Brandon Baker is likely to be your starting right guard. You kind of already know what you have there at your center position to some degree. And then you brought in Melvin Siani. So it's kind of like that center to right side of the line I feel, pretty good about when you're heading into the spring. It's that left side of the line that, will likely have a few more question marks. And even if, hopefully the signs continue to bode well for Lawrence Seymour, but, he still won't be here for spring, even if that does go our way. So, I appreciate the conversation, Joshy Manning, and I know my man Dave actually is going to be in there pounding the table yet again. But I have a strong feeling that I think Stephen Houston nailed it, and he and I tend to agree quite a bit. This O-line doesn't have to be the absolute best O-line in college football, right? They have to be extremely sound. They have to cut down on penalties. And I can't continue to stress enough, and it sounds like a throwaway comment, or like maybe we're trying to make some kind of excuse, but I think when you look at the weapons that are around Arch and that have been added to this offensive arsenal, I think that improves whatever offensive line iteration you end up getting by like tenfold, man. I absolutely think at the very bare minimum, this is going to be a significantly better passing unit from an offensive line standpoint. And then I just think the type of backs that you have, as well as the receiving weapons that Arch is going to be able to deploy, is going to be able to help this offensive line tremendously. So we'll certainly have much more conversation around this throughout the rest of spring ball, and then heading into the summer months and all throughout fall camp. But I think the amount of experience that they've added is going to bode really well. And then again, you have a guy in Arch Manning by the time that you get to the season that has so much experience and has done so much already, being under duress. I think it'll be great to see him have an opportunity to get out there and perform. But it is going to be one of those, you're gonna have to wait and see, and nobody's going to like to hear that. And likely, if anybody is saying things look good, then no one's going to believe it, and that's fine. Everybody gets an opinion on this thing. But I'm actually pretty excited about what the unit is able to eventually become. I just think you have to bear in mind that the spring isn't going to tell the entire story.
Yeah. And I want to ask, you mentioned Seymour there for a second. He's kind of the X factor. I mean, Texas is obviously still waiting on a ruling for him. It sounds like they feel there's some confidence there that it'll all work out for the best. But is he a make or break? In the chat, I think it was David Keith Williams says him playing could be the determining factor in Texas winning a championship or not. Do you see him as that X factor? I mean, where does he rank on that scale for you?
I think he's important, but I'll be honest with you. I don't think, I don't really want to put this out there, but let's say it didn't go Texas's way and he couldn't play. I still think they have the ability to win them all. Again, with it being more of the collection of the parts and not just, a singular entity. Excuse me. I also think that, he was someone that they brought in late, and they also had a pretty good amount of confidence in what they already had on campus. Now, we can argue about, what you think about who is there and their potential and who left and all the different things. But, again, in the grand scheme, I think they've, brought in a significant amount of experience. But I'm telling you, man, some of these young guys are pretty impressive. Yeah. And I think they have the ability to, play just fine and at a more than a serviceable level. So for me, no, I don't think Seymour is a make or break guy. I don't think he will be a determining factor in whether or not you win the national title when it's all said and done. Now, if he played left tackle, that maybe be a different conversation, right? But ultimately, he's an interior guy that when it's all said and done is going to, whoever is, the person that lands that final position, whether it's Seymour or someone else, by the time the season rolls around, is going to be next to, a potential top 10 pick in a Trevor Gooseby. And so I just think that, he would be a crucial piece to have, but not the person that would make or break it necessarily on that offensive line.
That's fair. That's a fair take, I think. We'll end with this one, Marcus, from Salt City Bulls. And he says, who is the Jay Witt of these current receivers? I think this is a pretty good question. Who's that guy?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit earlier. And, of the younger guys, I think it's a Cohen Brown. I'll be honest, I've not seen a ton of Sterling Burkhalter on film. I thought he was more of a burner. And then when healthy, I kind of think that Emmett Mosley certainly has the ability as well. But, I wouldn't also, turn my nose up at Ryan Wingo from a physicality and blocking standpoint. I mean, he's done a great job. So I don't know if there's a singular person, if there is anyone that I think maybe has the frame and the want to for it, it's Cohen Brown. But again, he's a freshman, so it's going to be a little harder for him to get on the field. But I've never, disliked what I've seen out of Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley. So I don't know if there's a true Whittington, 1-for-1 on campus at this moment. But I think the guy that maybe long-term has the best chance to embody that would be Cohen Brown.
So I like your Mosley answer, if healthy. That's who I think my pick would be. If he can stay healthy, then that would be mine for sure.
Absolutely. And I know we're about to wrap, Blake, but I do want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine, Derek Sherrard. It's his birthday today. Was a guy that took me under his wing when I first got onto the 40. So wanted to wish him well.
All right. Well, happy birthday. And I do want to mention, obviously, Bobby and Jerry will be back at 10. They'll have all your spring practice results from the first day or what they saw in the media viewing window. Spring practice will still be going on. But don't forget, you can also head on over to ontexasfootball.com. We can't be live all the time, but we are over there all the time on texasfootball.com. And right now we're having an OTF spring sale. Use promo code OTFOG. You'll get a full year for just $39.95. Again, promo code OTFOG. Lock in that full year for $39.95. Check it out on texasfootball.com. Between that and the YouTube channel, we got you covered with the best Longhorn coverage out there. And Marcus, thank you so much for talking with me. It's always great to have you on Monday mornings, man.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward, man. It's going to be a good week.
Oh, yeah. Spring ball is here. It's in the air. The Longhorns baseball start conference play this week. And it's spring break for a lot of folks, too. So a great week, no doubt about it. I want to give a shout out to Longhorn Wealth Management Group, Ridge Wallet, Vonlane, Harry's, and Hexclad, all for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thank you all for tuning in as well. So for Bobby Burton, Jerry Hamilton, and Marcus Myers, I'm Blake Monroe, and see you tomorrow morning.